And Republican candidate for governor Steve Levy joins us in the studio tonight. How are you?
Great, Liz. Thanks.
It is, I should also say, Suffolk County Executive, since that is your formal title.
Yes, for 6.5 years and loving every minute of it.
Indeed. Well, you get to be the king of your own domain, right?
Yeah, well, I've been a legislator and I've been an executive. And if you're not one who has a tough backbone or tough skin, don't be an executive. Be a legislator, because you can be all things to all people. You can vote yes on all of the spending in front of you. You can vote no on all the revenues to pay for it, like many of my legislators do. And then they say, we leave it to the executive to balance it. So if you don't have a tough intestinal fortitude to balance budgets, don't get into it. I do. I love that. That's what I do well. That's why I'm running for governor, because I think we need a manager, an executive, someone with fiscal experience who's taken a deficit and turned it into a surplus. That's what I do well. That's why I'm running.
So we're about to head down to Manhattan for the state GOP convention. That will be June 1st. Mm-hmm. And because of this sort of strange situation that you find yourself in, which is that you switched your enrollment from Democrat to Republican, but not in time for it to take effect for you to be officially a Republican. So you need 50% of the weighted vote instead of 25% of the weighted vote. That's what non-enrolled candidates mean. Will you get it?
Yeah, we feel pretty good about it. Originally I had, Mr. Lazio saying that he was at 70%. When I was announcing, he admits he came down to 50%. We think he's in the 40s. We think we know between those who've come out publicly for us and those who've told us behind the scenes that they'll be with us at convention. Right now, we're at about 45, and if we just split the rest of the undecideds, we'll have no problem.
Okay, so let's get back to the numbers in a second, but before we go there has been sort of some whispers and speculation that the party might actually either change the rules or seek to reinterpret the rules or seek to apply a piece of the rule that hasn't been applied before that actually would make it easier for you to get on the ballot such that you wouldn't have to hit that 50%. Do you think that would be appropriate for the rules to be changed, reinterpreted, et cetera, to benefit you? Or
well, I'm not getting involved with that. Whatever they want to do, they can do. I leave that to party leaders. I leave that to the people who are going to run the convention. We're not concentrating on that because we're concentrating solely right now on getting to the 50% where all of that is irrelevant. It has to be remembered, there are a lot of people saying that they want me to be on this ballot because before I came into this race, this was a fait accompli. Everyone was coronating Prince Andrew, and they're not saying that anymore because you have someone who's energized the race. They like the fact that I've got executive experience, that I've got a real plan to save us from bankruptcy, and I've got some resources that my opponent with just $600,000 does not, and you cannot beat Andrew Cuomo with that lack of resource behind you. So they've been encouraging me to run. I'm very happy to do so. We're making great progress, but I'll leave the mechanizations to those guys.
But would it be fair, though? I mean, if they had to manipulate the rules in order to benefit you, would that be fair?
I don't think it's going to be necessary. I tell you, we're doing really well. Over the last 2 weeks, we've gotten 5 endorsements to Mr. Lazio's 1, and we have a number of some big surprises coming up over the next week where we think we'll get a good 2, 3, 4 more that really going to make this very, very tight. And then by the last week, you'll see them tumbling over to put us in that 50% plus range easily.
That's fascinating. Do you want to tell us and give us any preview?
Well, we actually have the verbal commitments from 3 or 4 counties. We're just getting it on paper right now, and some announcements are imminent. We're not saying how many right now, but it's going very, very well.
Flippers or?
Both flippers and some of the undecideds. And what we're also getting are some counties where the chair might have come out for Mr. Lazio a number of months ago when there was no one else in the race. But the committee people who count, who actually vote, we're taking them away. So we're either splitting those particular committees or we're taking the majority. And that's the stuff that will make this very interesting on June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Yes, it's not going to be a boring convention.
No.
Let's just get back to something you said earlier about Andrew Cuomo. I'm not hearing, since you got into the race, and nor are the polls showing, actually, that Andrew Cuomo is not going to be coronated. I mean, he's beating you and Rick Lazio and Carl Palladino by double digits. I mean, perhaps, yes, if there was a coronation ever, that it was Rick Lazio, maybe, that he was going to be the assumed GOP candidate. But really, I mean, you're hearing people say, oh, no, Andrew's not a fait accompli anymore.
Well, I can tell you this. The Cuomo camp is much more worried about Steve Levy than Rick Lazio. Number one, because of the resources that I can raise, but number two, when we're on that stage and a moderator asks, so Mr. Cuomo, what have you done in your fiscal background to give us faith that you have what it takes to turn this major deficit around? He can't really say much. But then they say, Mr. Levy, what have you done? I've taken deficit, turned it into surplus 6 years in a row without a general fund tax increase. Mr. Lazio cannot do that. Resources I have, which Mr. Lazio does not. A plan.
You have $4 million to Andrew Cuomo's $16 million.
But
That's a big switch.
It's all about viability. You don't get money unless you're perceived as being a viable candidate. The reason Rick was not getting any money is because they didn't think he had a chance to win.
But you raised most of that money when you were still a county executive candidate.
Sure.
I mean, you weren't running for governor when you raised that money.
But it is showing an ability to do so. But more importantly, I think why people, and remember, the Republican leadership came to me and said, we would like you to run. Not all of them, but the majority of the regional chairs, along with the state chairman. They felt there was no traction before. They said, with your fiscal background, that's exactly what we need. The people of this state right now are looking for a manager, someone who's actually cut a tax, someone who's actually sat on the other side of a union at the table and extracted concessions as you did. So you've got that template, that resume that juxtaposes very well against Mr. Cuomo.
Well, you know, actually, Tom Suozzi made much the same argument running against a state attorney general whose name was Elliot Spitzer in 2006.
Good point.
You know, he couldn't make it happen. But hold on, Andrew Cuomo will stand on the stage and say, he may not be able to say, I cut taxes, I did this, because it's true. He's never been an executive. But he can say, I led the crusade against Wall Street, or now Wall Street, the student loans. I led the crusade. I'm prosecuting Pedro Espada. I'm going to crack down on Albany. I've showed that I can do it, and I don't play favorites, and I prosecute my own people, my own party people, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you know, why is your argument going to work this time when Tom Suozzi couldn't make it out of the box?
Great question. You astutely noted the irony here, where this year you also have a very popular attorney general with a lot of money, perceived as being coronated, running against the county executive. That's absolutely true. And you know what? If I were running 4 years ago, I would have got crushed just like Tom Suozzi did. The difference is, this year, from 4 years ago, no one was asking, so Mr. Spitzer, what is your plan to save us from bankruptcy? This year, that's all people are going to be asking. That's all the voters care about. We're on the verge of fiscal insolvency in this state. My skill set as an executive, as a manager, someone who's taken a deficit in a county bigger than 11 states and turning it into a surplus, that skill set was not perfect 4 years ago. It is perfect for what we need right now. The reason I'm running is because I saw there was no one with executive experience, anyone who's turned a deficit into a surplus running. That's what's going to make the difference this year.
What about the issue of temperament and the issue, I mean, obviously, and sadly we can't get into all of the stuff about, you know, you've got some issues with Latinos who are upset about your immigration policy. You have
majority of Latinos in my area support me.
Right, and the Tea Party people who are backing you, who are a little bit of a controversial group. I think some people see them as polarizing.
I see them as real Americans who are very scared about their future and the debt that's being dumped on their children's laps, and they're springing up and saying, we want to take our government back, and we want a real executive who's going to shake up that system. You know, Chris Christie was just asked in an interview today or yesterday, so what about this confrontational tone of yours? And he came back, are you kidding me? You know, the go along, get along kind of patting each other on the back, it hasn't worked. You need someone who's going to take on a legislature and embarrass them.
But that didn't work for Elliot Spitzer. The steamroller approach was a mess for him.
But Elliot Spitzer did not come from a fiscal perspective. He ran on the whole, ironically, the whole ethical reform stuff. Fiscally, they raised spending by 9% in his first year. I'm running on a mandate to get spending under control. But remember, David Paterson came in after Elliot Spitzer said, I'm going to try it a new way. I'm going to be collegial. I was one of them. We're going to sit down and sing Kumbaya, and you look at how we're going to get things done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you try to. I'm not going up there to be their friends. I'm going up there to be the grown-up in the room to say, it's time to take the tough medicine or this patient is going to die. Someone has to take on these public employee unions, Liz. Someone has to take on these special interests. Someone has to say, we've got a pension program that's going to implode. Someone has to say no to the Triborough Amendment that gives automatic step increases even after the contract expires, and disability rules that give 100% salary tax-free if you're home.
Steve,
Come
I have
on,
to
someone's
cut you
gonna
off.
stop it.
I have to cut you off. I'm afraid that actually you could do this for a very long time, which
I can.
worries me a little bit because I don't even know that you're breathing. But I really appreciate you
But
coming
that's the
by.
passion we need. That's the
Indeed.
passion we
Thank
need,
you.
Liz.
There was another passionate guy in 06. It didn't go so well. But we'll see how it goes.
But
for
this
you.
is all about fiscal acumen. I'm the guy with it, and we need to shake up Albany. It's not going to be by kissy and hugging everyone. It's going to be with a real man going up there and taking that place down to its foundation and starting all over again.
Well, we will see. Suffolk
Thanks,
County
Liz.
Executive.